Okay, you mentioned in the first part that it got to the point where you could say what you liked, and you come across a very genial, softly spoken Irish gentleman, but you do manage to garner some controversy. If you, I always do a little bit of research. I mean, all you've got to do is put your name in on Twitter, and there's people that absolutely love you, and there's other people that aren't quite so polite. I mean, is that something that you sort of, is it a professional thing that you've tried to create, or is it just, that sort of controversial wolf in sheep's clothing sort of character, or do you disagree with that
No,
totally?
no, I learned very early on. Like, so I started with Radio Kilkenny when I was 16 years of age. I joined Cork's 96 FM when I was 18. 96 FM at the time was one of the most commercially successful radio stations in the country. And at both radio stations, you would get texts from like burner phones saying you're a twat, or something more colorful. And I would really take it to heart, because there'd be nice texts saying, "Oh, great choice of music." Back in the days when in commercial music radio, you could actually choose the music you were playing on your show and not have it just picked for you, which I hate to break it to you, is exactly how it's done now. And there are some people out there who you just are never going to please, and who are not going to like you. And to a certain extent, they're not going to like you for no logical reason. And I understand that, because there's some presenters that I don't like. But I don't take to Twitter and say such and such is a insert colorful language. I'm not entirely sure what I can get away with saying on this illustrious show of yours, Simon. So I'm being on my best behavior so far.
We get the gist. We get the gist.
But don't worry, it could drop in. So I remember getting a message from a colleague of mine one day, and I realized actually that he was sending it to me to really attempt to upset me in the most possible way, which was another lesson about not everybody that you work with is your friend, and that just because you work with someone doesn't mean that you're friends with them. And it was there was a website called, and still is, the People's Republic of Cork, and somebody was going off on a rant about me, that like I was a prat and a blow-in from Kilkenny, and what the hell did I know, and what was I doing on 96 FM, and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, someone's saying some real nasty stuff about you there, boy. He doesn't talk like that, but he kind of does at times. And initially, we didn't have smartphones to be able to go, who the hell is this? And initially, I remember being crestfallen. And then I realized, who cares? It's just the opinion of somebody on the internet who I've never met and probably never will meet. And I've had this conversation with Clang name drop Nick Luck, and Clang name drop Ed Chamberlain, and Clang name drop Lydia Hislop. And in a way, I kind of admire Lydia's way of going about it, where she just tackles all of these trolls and eventually takes them apart piece by piece. I just hit the block button, and Nick has shown me the abuse that he's been sent, and Ed's shown me the abuse that he's been sent, and it's there. It's an element of social media. There's a young girl called Samantha who's 16 years of age and is writing about racing, and she's entered the Racing TV Tipstar competition. And my good friend Andrew Halligan from the Finishing Line podcast used colorful language to call out all of those who were having a go at her. And I was trying to find the tweets that were abusing her. And I realized that I'd blocked the people who were abusing her, so I couldn't see them.
Judge.
But I could see a few of them, and I thought it was shameful that here's a 16-year-old girl. What does racing need? It needs young blood. We need young people coming through who are engaged and are interested in the show. And here's this seemingly lovely young person who is very knowledgeable about the game, and you could probably sit alongside anybody right now and she'd hold her own. and just because she puts up a threes on shot, she gets targeted for abuse online. So everybody gets it. The thing is that there are days where you can look at abuse like that and just go, yeah, and you're blocked forever, and that's that, and move on. And there's other days where you could read 10 nice things said about the show and one negative comment that's directed at you, and it will eat away at you. And I know what that person wants. What that person wants is they want to do that to you. They want you to feel that. They want you to really feel the pain that they want to inflict on you with their words. And I've never wanted to do that, so I'm not entirely sure what the psychology is behind it. Is it that you truly despise the person and you cannot stand them so much that you must take to social media and you must voice your discontent from a faceless account? Or is it that you're actually hurting yourself and you go through some of these people's tweets and you see that they're having a go at multiple people? So there are days where it can get to you, and there are days where it can hit and punch you in the stomach. But for the most part, because I've been in broadcasting for so long and was introduced to it at such a young age, and I was bullied in school as well, I just think it's the internet. I don't really care, and I don't have time for your headspace nonsense. So block, move on,
One
and
of the
on we
things
go.
that sorry for interrupting there. One of the things that is very harmful, or can be very harmful about the internet, and especially Twitter, social media, is when people put stuff out there as fact, which other people read as fact, that's actually baseless. I mean, you recently, all sorts of accusations about why various sponsors left you because of various reasons that were just put out there as fact by people. How do you deal with something like that, which could have, in the worst case scenario, totally ruined everything you built up in all that time?
Yeah, I thought that at the time, actually. I think the answer to that is best answered by a tweet that was sent to me today. Somebody was saying, well, how do you answer the fact that, I've seen these accusations, but I haven't seen any proof? Yeah, exactly, because there isn't any. Because you can't do that. If you, like, we were number 7 on Apple Podcasts over the weekend, which is an enormous achievement for a horse racing show in the middle of the Premier League season. And there's only one reason that that's happened, and that's because of the fan base that we have. If you, to the best of my knowledge, if you attempt to try to manipulate numbers, you will get thrown off of Apple, for one. But you'll also get thrown off of the sites themselves, the site that hosts you. And I think what gave me heart during all of this was, and again, it was like, go and say whatever you want. You're anonymous clowns. 3 podcast agencies. Look, business is business. Like the split from ATR is business. It nearly happened in 2019. And I'm not going to speak disparagingly about a company that I worked with for such a long time, particularly when I have so much respect for Matthew Taylor. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of the people that work there, but not all of them. And I think that the Irish rights going was the beginning of the end. It wasn't necessarily in that it was in their mind that they very much wanted to continue the final furlong, with their association with it. But we talk a lot about Irish racing now. We also probably, if you actually really think about it, we probably talk more about UK racing, to be quite honest about it. But the fact that 3 podcast agencies, when I put it out there that I was interested in going solo, and I've spoken to Ronan McManamy, who's the man who hired me at 96 FM, who is one of the people I respect most in this world, and he's a big fan of racing as well. And one of the things that I like about Ronan is that he won't just say what you want to hear. He will call you on it straight away. If he thinks that something's wrong, or if he thinks that you're doing something wrong, he'll tell you, hey, that was shit. Here's how to do it better. Brian Purcell, who is a marketing genius, John O'Sullivan, who's a very good friend of mine. Brian's a good friend of mine as well, I should say. John O'Sullivan, who's been salesman of the year. He's a medical rep now, but he worked in media. We worked together at 96 FM. He knows how to sell. He's been salesman of the year 3 times in Ireland for the medical rep company that he works for. And he's given me some great advice, but also Niamh, who's a producer and a director. And when I put it out there to tender, 3 podcast agencies wanted it. And fair play, Acast realized, I know what you're doing. You've been advised by someone to try and figure out how best to sell the show yourself. And while you're not going to undercut me, I'm not going to, unless you want to sign a deal now, we're not going to keep doing this. God bless you, by the way. And fair play to Jennifer. She copped on very quickly, but the Podbean wanted to host the site, host the show on their platform, and Adlicious and a lovely guy called Craig, who I probably will still do business with. Adlicious are an arm of, they're the marketing arm in the UK of Megaphone, who have been bought by Spotify for something like $280 million. Willing to be corrected on that. And he was interested and is interested in working with me on selling advertising on the show. But out of nowhere, the Tote came along, and they came along to me directly. And they wouldn't be interested in the show if they didn't know the numbers, and they've seen them. They wouldn't be interested in the show if they haven't seen the actual audience breakdown. And you don't chart on Apple Podcasts by doing anything malicious. So for a brief period of time, for a brief few hours, I was freaking out. But I also then did realize that actually what was going on was I was trying to be goaded into a Twitter war, and I wasn't gonna give that individual that thing, and that same individual drove my friend Roy Delargy off of Twitter. So I mean, he'd start a fight with his own shadow. So I'm not getting dragged into stuff like that. My show is my show. I created it, but it's the listener's show, and it's only popular because they listen, and we have an incredible audience because we have fantastic guests. And this week we just had the show that's just done is with Mark Howard and Matt Toombs and Jamie Benson, and it's a fascinating breakdown of the weekend. The show prior to that was Gordon Elliott, Patrick Mullins, and Barry Geraghty. You don't get people like that on your show, and you don't get asked to do shows like that unless you're doing a legit job. So no, people will always have something that they want to say, and people will always have some conspiracy theory, and that's fine. But I don't spend my time going around abusing people on social media, and wouldn't ask. I'm not going to respond to that kind of stuff myself.